Hey ISV marketers, Adam Berezin here from msdynamicsworld.com. Thanks so much for joining me for another ISV marketing tip clip. Now, every year I go to a bunch of different dynamics focused in-person trade shows. And every year I see lots of the same ISV exhibitors there whose booth traffic kind of resembles that of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. They're lost in these massive exhibit halls surrounded by tons and tons of other exhibitors. Yet time and time again, year after year, these same ISVs continue to invest and spend money to sponsor these in-person trade shows, even though they haven't generated good results for them and their cost per lead is ridiculously high. I really wanted to find out why they do this. So I asked some of these ISVs. And from speaking with these companies, they were kind enough to share with me their perceptions and fears about why they feel they need to continue to invest in trade shows, even though they're not generating good results. They're kind of like holding on to some, last speck of hope that something great will happen. And from these discussions, really three perceptions stood out. So let's go through each one of these three perceptions. Perception number one: if I don't sponsor these trade shows, then Microsoft, end users, and partners will think that my company's having financial issues, or I don't support Dynamics anymore, or we don't have our act together. They're just going to think bad thoughts about my company. You really have to ask yourself this question, is that if people aren't going to your booth anyways, does it really matter if you have a presence at these events? Because this first perception really implies that in the past, people have been swarming your booth consistently, and that if you were to suddenly vanish like that and not sponsor these trade shows anymore, then all the attendees would just be standing around the exhibit hall wondering where you were and thinking bad thoughts about your company. Perception number two: everyone in the Dynamics community goes to trade shows. That's what they primarily do. So I need to be there. In 2014, there were 15 Dynamics-focused in-person trade shows, and combined, those trade shows had about 17,000 attendees. That's a tiny, tiny fraction of the Dynamics community, as there are over 200,000 companies around the world that use Microsoft Dynamics. So even if you were a superstar exhibitor and you were to capture the information of all 17,000 attendees from all these different trade shows, you'd still be reaching a small percentage of your prospects in the Dynamics community. Now, let's say that that was true and that everybody in the Dynamics community did attend these trade shows. The biggest issue is that they're still not visiting your booth. So once again, does it really matter if you have a presence at these events? Perception number three: Dynamics customers and partners primarily go to conferences to research solutions. And if I'm not in the exhibit hall, then these customers and partners will think that I don't exist. Well, 99.9% of all conference attendees, I would say, primarily attend the conference to learn, network, and go to the sessions. The exhibit hall is kind of like an added bonus. Think of the conference as dinner and the exhibit hall as dessert. The exhibit hall being dessert, it tastes great and it's kind of a guilty pleasure, but it doesn't really fill you up. It's not why people go to the restaurant in the first place. They go to the restaurant to actually eat the meal, which is the actual conference. And people go to the exhibit hall for all sorts of different reasons. But let's just say, for the sake of saying, that people do go to the conference primarily for the exhibit hall and to research solutions to fill their need. The biggest thing as it relates to perception 1 and 2 is that people aren't going to your booth. They're still not going to your booth. So once again, does it really matter if you have a presence at these events? As an ISV, you really need to look at it from a return on investment standpoint. You're spending tons of money to sponsor these trade shows, and if you're not getting good results, if you're not generating a reasonable cost per lead, then you really need to find alternative marketing vehicles. Once again, I'm Adam Berezin from msdynamicsworld.com. Thanks again for joining me for another ISV marketing tip clip. If you have any questions or comments, I can be reached at aberezin@msdynamicsworld.com. Thanks again and have a great marketing day.